This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. All right, it's that time of the week where I do my bold predictions for this week's game. Last week was probably my most successful bold predictions video. Honestly, it was the one that people didn't check out the most because we were all kind of not feeling the greatest about the Cleveland Browns. So make sure you go back and check out that video if you're interested. But today I'm talking about this week's bold predictions versus the Colts. What do I think is going to happen? I think a number of things are going to happen this week. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to say this regardless of who plays quarterback, the Browns will have better quarterback play against the Colts. I think that secondary can be picked apart. They do have some good linebackers. They have a decent enough pass rush, but I think that secondary playing indoors, that's going to be good for this Browns team, whether it be PJ Walker or Deshaun Watson. I think that the better quarterback play is going to be much improved from the last couple of weeks where it's been iffy. I think that there's not going to be as many turnovers, or at least under two. As there have been on offense the last couple of weeks. I think that quarterback play gets better. Now, why do I think that that's going to be possible? Do I think it's because I think PJ is going to play a great game or Deshaun's going to step back in there like he never left? No, I think there are a number of things bubbling underneath the surface of this Browns offense that are going to create a much easier environment for a quarterback to be successful. First thing is Elijah Moore. If you've watched Elijah Moore, if you watch my film breakdowns, you know that there have been a couple of games here where Elijah Moore really should have gotten a lot more production than he did in the game, but just the opportunities just weren't there. At some point, the opportunity is going to line up, and I think this week will be it. Better weather. I think the Browns' offensive line will hold up well against that Colts defensive line. I think you'll actually get the time to be patient and hit Elijah Moore down the field, and I think this is going to be a big week for Elijah Moore. I think they're finally going to be able to take those shots downfield, whether it's PJ or Deshaun. You know that both of those guys like to take those shots downfield. And I think those shots are going to be a lot cleaner now that Fred Warner's not in the middle of that defense, now that you're not playing the San Francisco 49ers in the rain, that you're actually going to have decent weather because you're playing in a dome. So I think you'll get better quarterback play. Elijah Moore's going to be a huge part of that. Another guy who's going to be a huge part of that is David Njoku. And the reason I say that is I think the screen game is going to be strong. If you've watched the Browns since even the Tennessee game, the screen game for them has been like this close to being awesome. But there's always a little penalty. Wyatt Teller holds on a touchdown to David Njoku. Jed Wills gets like 3 yards upfield. It's always like little execution stuff, not necessarily issues with how the play is structured itself. The Browns have had multiple times. Sometimes it's the offensive lineman climbing upfield too early, getting too eager. It's little stuff that's been making these screens not hit like they should. And I think this week it's going to come together. That screen game is really going to be there. I think it was this close to being there for the San Francisco game. Luckily, the Browns were able to win without it. I think this week will be a huge week for the screen game, and I think the screen game is going to be real strong in this one. Even the end-around game. I just think, like, there's so many things when I look at this Browns offense where I'm like, just a small tweak here to the execution. And this could have been so much more. As much as I've complained about some of the lack of innovation that you're seeing, the lack of pre-snap motion, all of that you haven't seen from this Browns offense that you would like to see an uptick of. When I look at them on film, I'm like, man, they are one miscommunication away from breaking a big play. And I think they'll get some of those things out of their own way. I expect the offense to have a pretty decent showing in this game. That's my bold prediction. I think the run game is going to continue to be strong. I think they really did figure some stuff out. The Browns were running some tosses out of crunch. They were running some inside zone. They were really switching it up more than they have the last few weeks. And I think that's them finally adjusting to living in a world without Nick Chubb. And I think even Jerome Ford, I don't know if his issues have been that he sees things late because he's just young and he's getting adjusted to the speed, or if he's seeing things late because that's just what it is with him. Either way, I think that they'll be able to get downhill enough. I think that they'll be able to have success enough in this run game to be a good offense this week. I think the offense is going to have a strong showing. That's my bold prediction. On the other side, this might be a shocker. I think this will be a down game for the Browns defense. A lot of the factors that I had pointing into why I felt like the 49ers were kind of due for a little bit of a down game are the same things I'm kind of pointing out this week, right? The Browns coming off of that big momentous victory, and this is the week that everybody is giving this defense its flowers. They're finally starting to compare them to some of the great defenses in the NFL, and that is all warranted whether they have a great showing against Indy or not. One game doesn't change that. But it's hard to come off of a week like that and maintain that same chip and that same edge against a team like Indy, who they're going through turmoil right now, right? Like a bunch of guys are hurt. Anthony Richardson just got season-ending injury. It's easy to write off the Colts, and as much as we like to act like the players are not human, they are human. And just like me and you, they're going to look at this game and go, oh, we got this. And sometimes that cannot be helpful. And again, you don't want to go into that with that mindset in the NFL, but sometimes it's inevitable because of the situation that a team is in, right? You could look at the week that the Kansas City Chiefs played the New York Jets. They were kind of talking like they didn't have the Chiefs, like, we're kind of talking like it was going to be easy. And that seeps in there, even with the best teams, even with the championship teams, with the championship mindset, like it seeps in there. When you're expected to win, it seeps in there. And I think the Colts are a good enough team to where you can't go in there and sleep on them. So I would not be surprised that the defense had a bit of a down game. And I think this will be a game where the offense might be the reason that you win. I think you're going to get more back-end coverage bust. Michael Pittman Jr. has been really good for this Colts team. I don't know if you guys have watched him, but the few games I've watched of the Colts, I've been very impressed with Michael Pittman Jr. I've been very impressed with Alec Pierce's ability to separate. Look, I'm not the biggest fan of Gardner Minshew, but if you leave guys open, Gardner Minshew is the type of quarterback that will be able to find them. And then Zach Moss, they have Jonathan Taylor, who's going to be on his third game back, who might be able to produce a little bit more offensively. And this is still an offensive line that's run blocking at a high level. I think the one Achilles heel to this Browns defense is that they are fast, but they are small. They basically go out there with 10 DBs, right? When it comes to body size, right? You talk about JOK, he is more in line with what a bigger safety is built like, more than a traditional linebacker. You can say the same about A-Walk and Taki. They're smaller. Even when they're in base, they're smaller. And then they like to run a lot of nickel, or they like to bring down Grant Delpit, who's a true safety, and play him in the box. So they're a smaller team. The teams that will give the Browns issues aren't the teams with like the dynamic running backs. It's the teams that have that heavy beef on the interior, the offensive line, that can pull and get to the second level and make it so that some of these smaller guys can't get to their run fit. And I think that Shane Steichen, who does a lot of that pre-snap motion, who's one of the best at that, he's going to do a good job of getting the Browns out there run fit, getting guards to the second level, and being able to run similarly to what you saw the Baltimore Ravens be able to do to the Cleveland Browns. So I think that the Browns going to have a little bit of issues because of that structural mismatch, stopping the run and being able to do those physical things within the trenches. So I don't think this is going to be their best run defense game. And I don't think this is going to be their best back end coverage game, because while they held up fine against the San Francisco 49ers, I think there are some cracks that are starting to be shown of the back end of this defense, and in playing 70% man. I think that's a bit heavy of a percentage to play in man. I think eventually they're going to have to be ticked back to at least 50, but 70 is just egregious. And I think the teams, the more they see it, the more they get used to it, are going to, have more clever man beaters. And this team has been susceptible to man beaters all year, right? You look at get the pick plays that you've seen Pittsburgh run, how Baltimore was shifting us out of run fits and then using those shifts out of run fits to shift us out of passing lanes. And then you can even look at how the end arounds have worked for the San Francisco 49ers. These are all things that are designed to take advantage of man defenses. It has not mattered because nobody has been able to find anything that works clean enough. But I think if you underestimate Shane Steichen, he's going to be somebody who can come up with something that can, you know, get to the teeth of this man coverage back end of the Cleveland Browns defense. So I would expect more bust. I would expect more issues being able to communicate in man. Now, the Browns adjusted really well after that Baltimore game with the communication, but that's all. It's one thing to keep that up when you're playing the San Francisco 49ers and you know that if you mess up, Christian McCaffrey can score right away. So it's a different level of pressure and intensity. It's another thing to keep that up when you're playing Indianapolis Colts team who nobody thinks is anywhere close to the San Francisco 49ers. So when that's the case, when the enthusiasm for your opponent is decreased naturally, because again, you're not playing one of the best teams in the league on the number one window on Fox. You're just not doing that. You're playing the Colts in a game that not as many people are watching. The communication might not be as urgent. The communication might not be as crisp. You might go into it with a more business as usual mindset. This is not a team that you can come into with the business as usual mindset and it not bite you. So I think that that's going to be something that hurts them early in this game, especially. But I think that run defense stuff, the teams with the elite guards, the teams that can pull, get in there at second level and really shift the Browns in and out of these run fits. I think those are going to be teams that are going to be able to have success running the ball against the Browns, at least momentarily. I don't know if it's going to be for the whole game, but for moments, they're going to have success. And I think that's something that the Browns ought to be careful of because I think it's most definitely on the table. But I will say, I think the edges are going to be fine in this game. I think you're going to get some good edge rushing games in here. I think, Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett are due for another big game here. I wouldn't be surprised if this is when it happens because Gardner Minshew is somebody who's going to hold on to that football. Their tackles aren't the most impressive thing on that offensive line. And I think that the Colts are going to try to stress this man defense as much as possible. So they're not going to leave as many tight ends in as you would think. So yeah, I think that they're going to be able to get some pressure there and get some sacks here, but I do expect it to be a little bit more frustrating to stop the run and a little bit more frustrating in the back end of coverage this week. It's going to happen. I think it's important not to overreact if it does, but that's what I think is going to happen. I think the offense is going to have a much better day than they've had the last two games they played. And I think the Browns defense is probably going to, need a little help this week from the offense. And I think that's fine. But that's my thoughts. Those are my bold predictions for this week's game. Let me know what you think down in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night.